the moment I have to download a game from the internet to my C64. And here we are. So, welcome to another episode on C64 Customs. And this is indeed a very interesting and amazing topic. And if someone would have told me 20 or 30 years ago that I'm going to connect my C64 over Wi-Fi to the internet to download programs to it within a few seconds, then I may have just questioned whether this guy is really sane or not insane whatsoever. And well, I have to admit I was sort of trying to ignore / avoid this topic because I thought this is yet another fancy way to connect the C64 to the internet without any real usage afterwards, and it is just going to get in line with the Wi-Fi option of the super kernel, for example, or with the network functionality of the Ultimate 2 Plus, for example, or the Turbo Chameleon, just to mention a few. There are other options available as well. And as we all know, we're still waiting sort of for the Wi-Fi functionality of the Ultimate 64 boards. So maybe there has been some progress or not. I'm not really aware of it, so I have to admit. But I kind of get hooked by the more or less recent hype on our little retro Twitter community. And so I thought, well, maybe that's something you have to dig into. And then I was well, following this whole development or this project on Forum 64 for quite a while, but never really got so interested in. But now I, well, got one for myself to test this, and today's episode is about the functionality and the features and how to use this little device, and how it is actually working in conjunction with other components in your C64. And therefore, without any further chit chat, let's jump into this episode. And here we are. Everything seems to be working fine. Not so sure with OBS all the time. Anyway, so as usual, let's have a look at my desk. What's going on here? We can see a very huge C64, and the purpose is that I want to show you this little module in detail. So in order to do so, I have to switch off my C64 and remove it from the, still got some dust in my lens, I can see it right now. And well, this is how it looks like. Actually, I have ordered this as an assembled version without the case, because I thought I have to at least do something by myself, and I printed the case. And I started to create my own case, and actually downloaded this one as a reference just to learn that it is almost perfect. So there's nothing really I have to complain about this. It prints fantastically without any support as well. So I thought, well, then let's give it a try. And there's no real need to reinvent the wheel over and over again. So let's see if we can get it opened. Well, it was working a little bit better the last time I tried this, so maybe it was the other side. Not sure right now. Well, I thought I practiced this a little bit, but here we go. So, and just to finish this whole thing about the case, it is actually a two-piece thing, and it simply snaps together. So there are some rims and some little burrs or whatever you want to call this, and then you simply snap it together. It is actually a little bit tricky to present a black case. That's what I just recognized right now. There are a few little strings here and there, and there's this nice, let's find a good angle, WIC64 logo here on the front side. It's I may have chosen another color, but I thought, well, this Galaxy Black by Prusa is actually a nice case option, and I really like it. So, and since it is open already, let's have a look at the WIC64. And as you can see, it is actually built around an ESP, which is some sort of a micro CPU controller unit, like an Arduino or something like this. And then we have some sort of an interface, and we have a little display that at least presents some valuable information in case something isn't working. So during normal usage, it is actually not required to pay that much attention to the display. Otherwise, I would complain about the size. I'm getting older, and there are much nicer displays available. But as I said, it is actually not really required. And you may have recognized already that this is not a cartridge. This is not for the expansion port. This is for the user port. And I'm always interested in to see applications that utilize the user port, because this is some sort of an not paying too much attention to it part of the C64, in my opinion. And it is really cool to see something that is attached to the user port. And the main reason for this is that the user port provides a parallel interface, so we can transfer 8-bit or 1 byte at a time. And therefore the speed of this modem is really it's mind-blowing. I just have to cut it short. It is really outstanding. And yeah, as you can see, it is simply just some sort of an interface. We have some level converters here, and actually this can be built by yourself quite easily if you are into SMD soldering. I was just hesitating because I've got so many assembly kits, PCBs, projects I have started and never finished in my boxes, so that I thought, if I'm going to go for it, then let's go for a ready-to-use version and see what we can do with it. So, and put it back into the case. It's actually quite simple. Just snap it together, and that's all we have to do. And we got some buttons, but they are not really required for normal usage, I think. At least I haven't found that much need for it. One is a reset button, and one is just something doing with the WIC64. Well, and then let's have a look at how it is operated, actually. So I think that's going to be a good view. I may zoom out a little bit, otherwise It's just some big bulky C64. So I think this is going to work fine. And as you can see, I have connected the WIC to my user port and the Ultimate 2 Plus to my expansion port, because I'm actually very interested in how those devices are working together. And I'm using this on my modded C64 running an kernel switcher and running Jiffy DOS, for example, having an modulator mod installed as well as an FPGA SID, and therefore we are not as close to the original C64 as it is maybe possible, but I want to see how this mix of components is actually coming along and if they like each other or not. So, and before we dig into the nitty-gritty details, I just want to jump quickly to a web page so that we have some source to talk about. And or just pick the wrong. Try it again. Here we go. So this is a bit too big, so let's shrink this down just a few notches. So, and I think this is going to work fine. As you can see, there is a very nice web page at WIC64.de, and here you can find all the stuff required to get this running, to build it by yourself, to have the data for the case, for example, and to do a lot of things which aren't actually not really required if you get a working version, ready to use version. And here you have a lot of tools and programs which you may need or may not need. And just to pick out a few ones that are really important, it's actually the WIC64 portal launcher. That's actually the core tool to go for it. And then you have this Koala Loader Picture Edition. That's actually some sort of a demo loading pictures from the internet or from this dedicated WIC64 server. And then you have some tools to get the time and date over the internet, and then well, whatever you may need. And I just recognize this C64 kernel. That's probably going to be interesting. So I haven't recognized this before. that's cool. So let's have a look if this might be on my USB stick already. Nope. So, well, then let's just start with it and then let's come back to this kernel thing. I think I have to do some testing. And as I said, this WIC64 launcher is going to be your core tool. And perhaps this is implemented in the kernel. That's something we really have to check. And you simply just start this, and then you actually jump directly into this main menu whatsoever. And the interesting thing is that it sort of remembers where you have been at the latest usage. So as you have seen me at the beginning, I was loading a micro hexagon. But if you go back, then we have indeed some sort of a standard menu. And here we have online games where I just found this micro hexagon, for example. We have a chat area where you can chat with people connected to WIC64. You have a file area where we can download apps, games, demos, disk max, whatsoever. And here we have this before mentioned Koala show, for example. And this is actually quite interesting thing because these images are downloaded in real time from the internet. And this is actually really unbelievable, so to say. And as some sort of a screensaver, it is actually too fast, so it's not really enjoyable, but it is really doing this at a very blistering speed. And we got some LEDs here as well. I'm not sure whether they are visible. And as you can see, this little bluish LED that blinks indicates that data is transferred to the C64. And as you can see, we're going through a lot of images in a very, very short time. And yeah, that's indeed very, very cool. So let's get out of this. That's always a little bit little riddle how to get out of those tools. And yeah, unfortunately we jumped back to this C64 screen, but as I said, we may end up at the same position where we have been. So you can go actually load a lot of things here, like games, and oops, that wasn't my intention. So not going to get lost in games. So let's cut this short here and go back to the main menu. Because indeed at the beginning of the journey, it is required to do some configuration work, and I hope I'm not going to mess up everything right now. So that's probably going to happen. Let's see. So if you go for select Wi-Fi network, it is doing actually a scan of your environment, and then you see all the networks available. And as you can see, I'm living in a building with a lot of people around me, and they all run the same telecom hardware, interestingly. And are we able to get out of this again? Or do I have to connect to the network now? Nope, it looks fine. I got an IP. Yeah, it looks like we survived this. And I have to mention a thing, because actually if you're going to join a Wi-Fi network, most of the time you have to provide a password. And you may imagine that using a C64 standard keyboard to enter a in real life more or less secure password is going to be a major PETA, to put it this way. Unfortunately, this channel is not safe for kids. And I really was struggling quite a while until I find a solution. And the solution is actually that I have created a guest network with a more or less typable password, typable in terms of doing this with a C64. You are able to use non-character symbols, something like this, like underscore or something like this, but it's going to be a hassle. And if your password has a certain length and you're going to do this with, let's say, the approach of Unicodes, then the password is going to be longer and longer and longer, and it wasn't fitting to the screen anymore. And I think that was the reason why it hasn't worked. So as I said, I have created a guest network with limited access, so it's actually just an internet access Wi-Fi network with a more or less typable password, so that I can use uppercase and number and nothing else, and then everything was working fine. So, and yep, we have a couple of other things like internet, for example, and this is a really cool thing, because here we got a CSDB browser, and if you're going to enter this one, then and by pressing R, well, latest releases, we are going to see a list of the most recent releases on CSDB, and this is indeed a very cool thing. And by just pressing a number between 1 and 6, we can pick one of the releases. Let's go for 5. It sounds some sort of impressive to me. And then we can see that there is some info about the release itself. So this is going to be some music, and maybe that's the reason that there's no nice picture or something like this. Otherwise, we could have a look at the picture as well. And with run, we can actually load the program directly from the CSDB via internet, via Wi-Fi to our C64, and here we go. How cool is this? So that's very. And indeed, I digged into the kernel thing just to see what it is all about. And I have to admit, my expectation were a bit bigger than maybe the state of this specific kernel is actually presenting. But anyway, it is a very interesting option, and especially if you're running an Ultimate 2 Plus cartridge or something that is able to replace your C64 kernel on the fly. It is indeed interesting to test, and this is exactly what we are going to do right now. So as you can see, I'm running this JiviDOS on my 8 kernel change switch whatsoever thingy here. And now we just go into our Ultimate 2 Plus menu. One thing that I want to mention up front is it makes a lot of sense that you have configured your Wi-Fi connection already. I trapped into this issue, and I was indeed a little bit confused, because nothing was working until I paid attention to the little display here. And as you can see, there is actually some gibberish at the bottom, but on the top we have some numbers. And this is actually our Wi-Fi IP address, or our device IP address, so to say. And if this is showing 4 zeros, then you're not connected to your Wi-Fi. And then most of those features and functions are, well, logically not working. But anyway, let's jump into this. Let's go to our WIC directory, and then we can see there's the WIC64 kernel. And there are actually 2 of them. I'm not so sure what's the main purpose of it, but let's go for this one that sounds like the one we want to test. And now we can say load kernel. And after a short or very brief moment and a reset, we got Commodore WIC64 Basic version 3. And now we got some very odd pre-definitions of our function keys, which are actually not working the way we expect this, because, well, file not found, there is actually no start PRG. But if we're going to type in almost the very same thing, nope. We have to start with HTTP, and we go to the address of our WIC64 web page, Then we can now type in directory.prg, and there we go. We got the directory listing, and this load command has been added to it already. And they all come with this pretty weird sign in front of it. So let's see if this is actually going to work right now. So let's test this one. File not found. Okay, so let me think. Maybe we can configure this somewhere in the launcher. Setup and config. Change password, select Wi-Fi network, WIC tools, set server, http://www.wic64.de/prg/ready. However, ready means maybe it's simply just jumping out of the tool and it's doing nothing, or let's see, maybe. Now it's trying to access our floppy drive. So we may have to start the kernel again. Nope. What it is doing right now? Load kernel. Oh, it has done something. Loading, start PRG. What's happening? Oh, we end up in our WIC tools. So let's get out of this. Exit. Still in our kernel. And we have loaded the directory. Cool. So let's try this again. Use joystick up for next picture. Press fire to activate auto load. Okay. Picture taken from whatever. Ah. And even with music. How cool is this? How do I know whether I have enabled auto load or not? By just waiting for it. So, another very cool feature of the WIC Wi-Fi modem. Now we got a picture show with a new fly image with sound coming directly from the WIC64 server from the internet, just right to our C64. That's just mind-blowing. I'm so stoked, so to say. That's cool. But well, before we get stuck here, then I'm just briefly go over the other features. So we have a chance to connect to RSS and Telnet sources. That's something I haven't spent that much time, and it is some fancy things, and it's interesting if you have used this back in the days, so to say, but I have never been that much of an BBS type because I was simply too late to the party, and then the internet took over. And the next thing I was going to present is actually, I think, the file area. And here it was apps. And here we got the WIC64 radio. And this is a very, very cool thing. Nice loading screen indeed. And then it is playing music immediately. And you can just let it run. It will switch to the next tune every 3 minutes. Or you go to long play mode and you can listen to this specific tune as long as you want. And we can use the P button to select playlists. Well, yeah, simply to put it this way, we can listen to playlists, and we just have to press space. Then we can get out of this, and then we should... Nope, that wasn't right. No, and... 0? No. Please choose. We did so. Okay, and then return, maybe? Yeah, indeed. So, if we are in the playlist selection, we have to use return to actually select the playlist, and then it will start to play. And as you can see at the top of this is one of my favorite SID artists, and probably the most active SID artists on YouTube, for example. And you may have recognized that I'm playing some of his tunes every now and then if I'm going to build something or something. Just as the before mentioned, some sort of elevator music, but his music is way beyond elevator music. But actually, yep, we got the playlist here and we can listen to his music in, well, some sort of an endless loop. And with space we can switch to the next tune, and this goes on and on and on. And we can listen to Lukas' tune, for example, or to groups. That's a very nice thing. And this is actually streamed directly from the high voltage SID collection. And the only thing I miss is actually adding my own artists, for example. I really want to get in Matt Gray, for example. That would be a very, very cool thing, but maybe that's probably in progress, and maybe we're going to have this sometimes. And we got some little help screen as well, so if you get lost. But even here it is not mentioned that we have to press return. Oh yeah, return in playlist select. Just read RTFM, so to say. Okay, back to the portal. And it is doing something, or has it just got stuck? So I'm actually not sure if this is really related to my special version of the C64, if this collides with some sort of the kernel I am using. So maybe we switch to a standard kernel, something like this. That would be a cool feature. Or maybe I'm going to test this in some spare time moments and then come back to it later. So yeah, and we got some real-time clocks as well, so we can go for a nice screen. Yep. And got some internet time. And this is actually quite interesting because today is equilibrium, so it means it's the day and night equal length day, and in Germany we have switched our daylight saving last night, and it's actually not 1905, it is 2005. That's funny. I haven't expected to see this one, so let's see whether we can find a clock that is really showing the correct time. So this looks indeed a bit confusing, but it is actually 7:05 as well. But this is a very, very nice clock, and even showing the date. Very cool. Binary watch Berlin. Berlin watch. So I have to admit I forgot how this clock is working. So I can't tell whether it is showing the right time or not. Oops. Well, that's actually a good chance to learn this. So now we got a binary clock. That's something we may understand. So I assume that actually the top row are the hours. So it's basically 4 and 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. 16 and 4 is 20. And it's 6 past 20 and some seconds. Okay, so this is actually working. This is showing the correct time. It's a bit confusing that we just have 6 bits. So that was what I'm struggling with. But now we got some nice online synchronized watch, and they may or may not show or present the right time. So yeah, that's actually the quick walkthrough of the WIC64 Wi-Fi modem. Yeah, we got some demos. Interesting. Probably having no chance to get out of this. So we may just reset the C64. Yeah. So then, well, I think as a short overview, this is actually already long enough. I have tested the WIC with the Ultimate 2 Plus, for example, with the Kung Fu cartridge, with an Easy Flash cartridge, and I even loaded the launcher from an SD to IC device and from a Pi 1541 device. Everything was working fine. So usually you won't see any interference when you are using normal, whatever normal means, C64 programs, as long as they are not accessing the user port. So if you have something with printer functionality, or if you are using, for example, Messiah, which may get some MIDI sync over the user port, then it is probably going to look a little bit strange what you may experience, but this is actually, I think, not the day-by-day usage, and then you may come up with the idea by yourself that something may not work as expected. And yeah, that's actually what I have to present here. It is doing something or not. I'm actually not sure whether I hit the enter key or not. Now we got a black screen. There's actually just one thing I like to mention at the end, and this is regarding the online games, because the cool thing is that if we go back to online games, there's actually a multiplayer game as well that may or may work in a certain way. I haven't figured out how to do this. It's not finished yet, but I was somewhere. Oh, break in. Oh, Is it actually a basic program? No, but we can start it again. I thought I jumped directly to the multiplayer game, and it was asking me for, I think, a game code or something like this. So this is perhaps not. No, no. Then I'm wrong. That's not what I was talking about. But the one thing I want to present, and we're going to do this right now. If we go to high score games, and if we go, for example, to micro hexagon, we can actually visit, or well, sort of a board, or we can see the high score list for this game. And if we go back to the game and we play the game and we may create a high score, we will end up at this board. And this is what I meant at the beginning. This has created a little bit of some sort of a hype in our Twitter community. But actually, I'm not really good at micro hexagon. That's something I had to learn. So I'm probably not going to make it to the high score list. And we may have to use different joystick port as well. Would be interesting to learn how the time is transferred into a score. So for me, actually 130 or 140 is some sort of a natural barrier, and then I can't keep up with the speed, and I always get trapped in this shape which has just one exit, and I may survive one, but I'm not going to survive the next one. Even I'm talking about exactly this one, even if I have created some sort of a strategy how to approach this, but I'm simply too slow. So yeah, and that's actually the end of this episode. You're not going to watch me playing micro hexagon 20 or 30 times, but this is actually one of the cool features of this interesting WIC64 Wi-Fi modem for the C64, and it is working on the Commodore 128 as well, at least in the C64 mode. And I think they are working on getting this to work on in the 128 mode as well. And yep, that's all I have to say. If you want to order this, it is planned that this is available at the restore.store.de web store, web shop. It's actually not listed there as something you can buy, and I think the owner of this shop is actually on vacation, so the shop is some sort of closed as well. But I have seen in the Forum 64 that it is planned that you can get this there, and therefore we're going to have a source. I got mine directly from the Forum 64. They appear every now and then in the marketplace, and then you can get this there. It is about, I think, 30 euros including a case. So the price is quite okay-ish if you are interested in the functionality. If it's just something you put in your shelf, then it's maybe a little bit on the expensive side, but I think the main cost is driven by the ESP, and therefore there isn't that much room to negotiate. So that's all for today. I'm well, thank you very much for watching. That's what I'm going to say. And if you are interested in to stay informed, feel free to subscribe to the channel as well, or if you want to support me, feel free to join the channel membership. That's always highly appreciated and enables me to cover projects like this, for example. And if you want to follow me a little bit more closer, I'm a bit more frequent with updates on Twitter. so you can find me there as well. And as I have mentioned before, there is a very, very nice retro community, and we share a lot of things about all the different computer systems, not just Commodore, but everything related to the good old area. So that's all for today, and see you for the next episode. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.